Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. My name is Max Proant. I'm a Philos Project Research Fellow working with IDC in Defense of Christians. And today I will be moderating the panel discussion on Jihad and Christian Persecution in Nigeria, how to manage a persistent and metastasizing threat. As the title of the panel suggests, the topics covered today are rather severe and demand attention and action of those who profess care for persecuted Christians or for any people who were denied their freedom of worship. In Nigeria, Christians and other religious groups face horrendous challenges. They are routinely targeted by Islamist militants, be they Boko Haram, the Islamic State West African province, or radicalized Fulani tribesmen. Reports come in weekly, if not daily, of Christians being murdered, kidnapped, raped, of entire Christian villages being razed. Many say that the situation of Nigeria's Christians constitutes a genocide. In an essay published with the Wall Street Journal, French philosopher and political activist Bernard Henry Lévy wrote of his trip to Nigeria that, "I have the terrible feeling of being carried back to Rwanda in the 1990s, to Darfur in South Sudan in the 2000s. Will the West let history repeat itself in Nigeria? Will we wait, as usual, until the disaster is done before taking notice? Will we stand by as international Islamic extremism opens a new front across this vast land, where the children of Abraham have coexisted for so long?" To discuss the challenge of Islamic extremism and the persecution or genocide of Christians in Nigeria, IDC has brought together some of the foremost experts on Nigeria and international religious freedom. Today's panel includes Stephen Enada, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, Leila Gilbert, Dr. Gregory Stanton, and former Congressman Frank Wolf. To each of you, I say welcome and thank you very much for joining us today. The panel will be organized as follows. Each panelist will speak on an aspect of the situation in Nigeria for 10 or 15 minutes. Following these presentations, I will ask questions based on the presentations. We will conclude with the Q&A session from the audience. Before we begin, I would like to extend special thanks to the Institute for Religion and Democracy for allowing us to use their space here, as well as special thanks to the Philos Project and In Defense of Christians for their support. We will begin with a message of solidarity from Congresswoman Lee, who is on Capitol Hill. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee represents Texas's 18th Congressional District. She is the co-chair of the Congressional Nigerian Caucus, and she has worked in Congress since 1995. So, cue the video.
Hello, this is Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, and I'm standing here in Washington, D.C. on the Citadel of Democracy, the United States House of Representatives and the United States Congress. I'm coming to make sure that you know, as the chair of the Nigerian Caucus, that we stand against the persecution of Christians in Nigeria. We stand for democracy and freedom, nonviolence, and the protection of all those who want to practice their faith. We wish that Boko Haram will understand our demand to cease and desist from killing innocent Christians, men, women, children, religious leaders, burning churches, and that all faith can be honored in Nigeria. I know that there will be a conference and a panel that will speak directly to this violence and the hurting of Christians. I know that our faith will carry us through, and we in the United States Congress will continue to fight. I'm a member of a Human Rights Commission. We stand against this kind of violence. We held a hearing about the attacks on Christians in Nigeria. Again, I want all faith to be at peace, but we will continue to stand with you as we find out the facts and the solutions. I encourage you in this panel, and may it be a blessing for a solution to stop the persecution of Christians. Thank you so very much for having me and giving me this opportunity. I will stand by you for human rights, religious freedom, justice, equality, democracy. We will never give up, and we will always stand. Again, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee and the Nigerian Caucus of the United States Congress wishes you well on this day, standing against the scourge of Boko Haram and violence against Christians in Nigeria. Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Stephen Enada. Mr. Anata is the president and co-founder of ICON, the International Committee on Nigeria. Mr. Anata has over 25 years' experience in asset-based community and international development. Mr. Anata has led many innovative programs in Africa and especially in Nigeria. So, Mr. Anata, the floor is yours. You may come up here.
Thank you. Thank you, IDC, in Defense of Christians, for this opportunity to be here today. I and my team have been following your work consistently, and we thank you for what you do in defense of Christians, which I'm here today representing as well. Like he has rightly said, I'm Stephen Enada from ICON. My role is to what is the Nigerian government response to terrorism? And when we talk about terrorist groups in Nigeria, everybody will understand that we have Boko Haram, who has claimed to be, their stance is to declare Islamic Caliphate in Nigeria. The concept of Dar es Salaam is still very, very fresh within, and they have entered into alliance with ICE West Africa and also some other terrorist groups. And that also has seeped into Fulani militants who are actually wreaking serious havoc in different communities in Nigeria, especially the Middle Belt. So now, you look at this from the perspective of what has Nigeria government done. The question starts from Chibok girls that were kidnapped, abducted some few years ago, to be precise, 2014. But what has Nigeria government done? These girls were sold as sex slaves. Then you come back again, you see the other one on Leah Sharibu, where Boko Haram abducted these girls, over 100 of them, and because Leah Sharibu refused to recant, she was sold as sex slaves. Now we have information that she was married off and has 2 children. She was kidnapped at age 14. What is Nigeria government? Nigeria government negotiated, and those other Muslim girls were brought back, but Leah Sharibu was left on her own. Now, also Nigeria government, through the operation of Nigeria Army and that of Chad and Niger, have actually apprehended over 2,000 Boko Haram in the last 8 years. What we hear from time to time is that they have been released into society, some of them recruited into Nigeria Army. That is response you get from Nigeria government with, oh, we are de-radicalizing them. And that has given some kind of reinforcement to these terrorists that once we commit this atrocity, Nigeria government will still release us. Plan of Nigeria government to annex lands and appropriate it to Fulani militant. Now, when these Fulani militant, especially in Kaduna State, in Plateau State, in Benue State, there are many, many occupied territories by Fulani militants, and they have established mini caliphate in these towns and villages. What has Nigeria government done? Nigeria government is asking different state governments to give such land to Fulani militants. Now they are collecting tax for their own caliphate agenda. It's there, and these are on record. Benue State Governor, who will be here shortly this next week, has been crying that, look, we have 2 local governments occupied by Fulani militants. What has Nigeria government done? Nothing. So you begin to look at Nigeria government response to fighting terrorism or their intention to end it. We have not seen any of such. Rather, we see how they have consistently enabled terrorists to flourish. So we have many ungoverned territories in Nigeria occupied by Boko Haram in the northeast and by Fulani militants in the middle belt of Nigeria. Now, you begin to look at other incidents that these Boko Haram and Fulani militants have perpetrated in Nigeria. One of such is the prison break in Kuje in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, the seat of Nigeria government. Terrorists invaded Kuje prison that housed these criminals and terrorists, and in one night, they released over 600 terrorists. And now you can ask yourself, 600 is a crowd, a lot of crowd. But they marched through Abuja city and they were released into society. What has government done? Nothing. Where is Nigeria military? It's appalling, and it's something that no sane human being can comprehend. But Nigeria government doesn't care. It's business as usual. And also, like Bernard Levy was saying in his film, the lack of will to see all of these things by international community. And that has given Nigeria government the comfort not to act. Now you look at the bombing of Abuja, Kaduna train, where over 300 people were abducted and they were releasing them, negotiating and paying ransom. Then imagine here in the United States, a terrorist abduct me and then is negotiating through phones and other sources that money should be paid. So Nigeria government willfully paid them money. And now we have a situation, a Christian lady abducted during that train attack has been held against her wish that a leader of that terrorist group wanted to marry her, sorry. So negotiation about marrying her is on. Another Leah Sharibu loading. You see, even in the Southwest, that we don't even find such activities in our war. When, during the Pentecost, where they went and bombed and killed a lot of people. So it's almost everywhere. What is Nigeria government response? Nothing. So the other one, and this is the final one I would like to mention, is the terrorist leader in Zamfara was conferred with chieftaincy title by the state government. These are egregious crimes, and this is the reward for being a terrorist. Nigeria government is complicit, is culpable, is enabling terrorism to flourish in Nigeria. They have not done anything, and I think the international community must hold Nigeria government accountable. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Stephen. That was very helpful. Next, we have Leila Gilbert, who is a senior fellow with the Family Research Council. She's also done quite a bit of work with the Hudson Institute. Ms. Gilbert is a prolific author and leading expert on Christian persecution in Nigeria. So please, everyone, give a warm welcome to Ms. Leila Gilbert.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I appreciate very much hearing from Stephen because he can speak so clearly for the people, his people, and he knows a great deal about how things work in Nigeria. I'm a writer. I mostly write books and articles, and I learned about Nigeria years ago from Caroline Cox, Baroness Cox in Britain. I wrote her biography in 2005 or 6, and my first introduction to Nigeria was a story of then Bishop, now Archbishop Ben Kwashi. This was like 2004 that these radicals came into his house and attacked his wife brutally. She was unable to speak for weeks after. His children were abused. This was so long ago, and this was the first I learned about this country and that these things went on. And of course, since then, it's become so much worse, and it's so common. But it's nothing new, and I think one of the things we have to understand is that although there are names for these groups, Boko Haram and the Fulanis and so forth, this is radical Islamist terrorism. That's what it is, and they've organized and they've got their funding. And it does appear, as Stephen said, that the government is, if not just totally incompetent, very complicit in this, and I agree with you. But I think one of the things that I learned from Baroness Cox was how important it was for her to go in and be with these people on the ground in the villages following these attacks. One of the problems, and I've worked with Nina Shea for years about this as well, and one of the problems is documentation of these attacks. It's very hard to find out how many died, how many were killed, or how many were wounded, how many ran away and we haven't seen them since, children abducted. It's very hard to get those facts there. And there was a program established under the Trump administration that almost went through, funding-wise, for a documentation system to teach the people locally how to go into these places and find out. But we don't have numbers. We don't have honest, and I shouldn't say honest, I should say accurate, because people are traumatized, they don't even remember what happened half the time. So I learned from Baroness Cox, I think the first thing I realized just how important it is for witnesses to go in and find out what's going on. And it's very dangerous, and it's not something that I can get on a plane and go over there and do, but there are people that need to do this and find out how many people died, how many people were kidnapped, how many children disappeared, where are they, and from there we can begin to build stronger cases. But even as it is, in the work I've done in the last couple of years at Family Research Council, I worked there as Senior Fellow for International Religious Freedom, and I've spent so much time on Nigeria because it just keeps coming up and up. But one of the things I've learned is the excruciating pain of the people who survive, the ones that are left with their children mutilated. These are horrible, horrible crimes. Children mutilated, women gang raped in front of their families, little kids taken away. This is going on almost every week now. It used to be, maybe once a month we'd get a report, 2 or 3 people, this or that. It's become so common and so unrestrained. And so we were all extremely encouraged when Secretary of State Pompeo declared finally that Nigeria was a country of particular concern. And that lasted not quite a year until the Biden administration came in. And Frank, you may know about this, but I just learned last week about this great sale of helicopters that America made, $1 billion sale, I think $997 million sale of attack helicopters that just went through in April. And it just makes me wonder about the financial interests of America and why, if that's perhaps the reason why we're not getting much activity in terms of real condemnation and country of particular concern. I mean, money talks and who knows what goes on. But that was very disturbing to me. These helicopters are deadly. And the Army there, in the best of times, usually kills a bunch of civilians every time they go in. So it wouldn't be a good, a good plan. But I would like to come back to one thing. I mean, I've looked at so many cases. And the case of Leah Sharibu, as was brought up, you know, I met her mother. I met with people that have been kidnapped. We had a girl at a conference about a year ago who was kidnapped by Boko Haram and jumped off a truck and managed to escape. And, you know, this is so horrifying to us. We live so well and we live so safely. But Leah's mother received word from her shortly after she was kidnapped and told her mother not to worry. She said, I'll see you again and just pray. And she just wrote this sweet note and handed it to a girl that did get out, who was a Muslim girl. Leah was the only one that didn't leave because of her Christian faith, as he said. And then there was another interview that described her conditions, and it fell silent. And as Stephen pointed out, it appears whether she was married or just used by her captors, she does have these children. But the sadness of this case, when I pray for her, I don't even know what to say. It's been 4 years. And she's been there, and there's silence, and she's a saint. I mean, whatever's happened to her since, whatever she's living with now, She's got these 2 kids. I think we need to think of her as sort of the poster girl for the cruelty of this country, of the Nigerian, all of these terrorist groups, and then these random so-called bandits who are also doing other things that aren't as well organized. Remember Leah, and when you think of her, think of the incredible cruelty of what she's going through, and that you multiply that times, what is it, 40,000? That in the last 10 or 12 years, I can't even remember the numbers now, but it's been unbelievably horrible, and nobody's doing anything. We can't send troops in. We don't want boots on the ground. We're giving them airplanes, or selling them airplanes. I'm very frustrated about Nigeria. I don't have a lot of good news. I can't think of anything to say except pray. And remember, first of all, we live very well. We can spare the time to think about and pray about and seek help for these people who are dying pretty much on a weekly basis for their faith. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Leila Gilbert, for that. All right, next we have Dr. Gregory Stanton, who will be joining us via a video. Dr. Stanton is the founding president and chairman of Genocide Watch. Throughout his long career, he has worked as a scholar and advocate and has even advised the United States Department of State on matters of genocide. So, everyone hold tight and we'll get him right up on there.
Hello, my name is Greg Stanton. I'm the founding president of Genocide Watch. Today I want to talk to you about genocide in Nigeria. I want to explain why Genocide Watch considers the massacres of Christians that are occurring in Nigeria to be genocide. Since 2011, over 40,000 Christians have been murdered in Nigeria. One of the groups that carried out murders, and it wasn't just Christians, it was also Muslims, was Boko Haram. And I'm sure you have heard of Boko Haram because they kidnapped 270 girls from the Chibok Girls' School in northern Nigeria, and many of those girls have still not been released. But what a lot of people don't know about is that since about 2015, another group, Fulani jihadists, have actually exceeded the number of people killed, Christians killed, by Boko Haram. Since Muhammad Buhari became president of Nigeria in 2015, over 11,500 Christians have been slaughtered by Fulani jihadists. Why is this happening? One reason that is often given for this is climate change, as though this was some kind of traditional conflict between herders and farmers. That is the official narrative of the Nigerian government, also of the U.S. ambassador to Nigeria, Mary Beth Leonard, of several human rights groups, the human rights groups that you would think should know better. But this is not a massacre due to climate change. It is a religious genocide. Fulanis have long been the jihadists of Nigeria. They converted hundreds of thousands of Nigerians in the early 19th century under Don Fodio, who was the Caliph of Sokoto. They forced the Hausa people to become Muslim. What has happened since that is that the Fulani have never abandoned their jihadist objectives, and what is happening today is a continuation. The president of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari is a Fulani himself. And in fact, he is president of the Fulani Cattle Breeders Association. And that Cattle Breeders Association is funding this genocide. It is also made up of many of the generals in the Nigerian army who own vast cattle herds. The reason why this is happening is not just religious, in other words. It is also an attempt to take territory away from other groups, especially the Christian groups that have traditionally been in central and northern Nigeria. Why is this considered genocide? Well, genocide is defined as the intentional destruction in whole or in part of a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group as such. What we have here is the intentional destruction of a significant part of the Christian religious group of northern and central Nigeria. It is intentional because it is organized, it is not accidental, it is not just criminal gangs going around and killing people. It is in fact now so well organized that when the Fulani jihadists come to a village, they will come in 100 trucks with machine guns mounted on them. They will massacre the whole village. They will take over the houses, they will burn them down, and they'll declare that village to be now part of their caliphate. In other words, there's a religious motivation and intention behind this genocide. One question that legal people will always ask is, but how do we know it was intentional? With Boko Haram, it was obvious, because Boubacar Sheko, who is the leader of Boko Haram, declared that he was out to kill Muslims who didn't believe the way he did, and also Christians. He also was against all forms of Western education. He blew himself up in 2021. But the genocide that he began has still gone on. There's another group in Nigeria called ISWAP that is now allied with Boko Haram. In fact, they both are allied with ISIS. So what we have here is a part of a conspiracy to take over the whole Sahel, in fact, in the name of Islam. And it extends as far as Mali, Niger, Cameroon, the area of the Sahel, which still has many Christian areas. The idea is to drive out these people who are occupying land that the Fulani want to occupy with their cattle. So in other words, the intent to take over and to kill Christians is very evident, because when the Fulani take over an area, they don't kill the Muslims. They only kill the Christians. That is called genocide. Now, in other words, intent is crucial to genocide, and we have plenty of evidence that this intention is there. We have a problem in this because our own government, the U.S. government, the Nigerian government, a number of human rights groups, are in denial about this. They try to say that this is all because of climate change. Well, it isn't. It's an intentional religious genocide. Now, it's slow. It isn't as though they're trying to wipe out all the Christians at once. But slow genocide is still genocide. One of the things that is often used to refer to this kind of genocide is genocide by attrition, in which more and more areas are taken over, more and more people are killed. The jihadists have blown up churches. They have carried out massacres in Catholic churches on Easter. They have done all kinds of massacres throughout the central and northern belt of Nigeria, and also even into the southwest. So what can we do about this? The first thing we need to do is change the narrative. And if we're going to do that, we have to change our ambassador, the U.S. ambassador in Nigeria. Because Mary Beth Leonard, who is the U.S. ambassador in Nigeria, is a genocide denier. She denies this as genocide. So do some other so-called experts. And Mary Beth Leonard is a nice person, a good person. She just doesn't understand genocide. It's time that we put an ambassador in there who does. I have seen it before. David Rawson, who's a dear friend of mine, was our ambassador in Rwanda, and he didn't understand genocide either. And guess what? Because he was in denial about the genocidal forces that were building in Rwanda, he didn't see the bloody handwriting on the wall. And that is what is happening in Nigeria today. The second thing we need to do is we need an international commission of inquiry to go and investigate what is happening in Nigeria. We can't count on the Nigerian government to do this because it is hopelessly corrupt. And not only that, the president and his henchmen are even part of the problem. We have plenty of evidence now that the Nigerian generals are the source of most of the arms that are being used by the Fulani jihadists. They sell them. And that is why it has to be an international commission of inquiry. I think this can be done through the UN Human Rights Council. Possibly it could even be done through the UN Security Council or the General Assembly. But what we need is, we need the facts, and we need them established with definitive certainty. The third thing we need is we need a massive, massive organization of people in Nigeria who can fight this genocide. That will mean we'll have to retrain a lot of people, but it's got to be Nigerians who do this fight. We must avoid, of course, a civil war in Nigeria. It's had plenty of civil wars. But what we need is a massive effort by Nigerians to defeat these jihadists. The final thing we have to do, in my view, is we don't need to have sanctions against Nigeria. General sanctions don't work. They need to be targeted at the people who are organizing this. In other words, if we have evidence that certain generals are behind it, that they're funding it, that they're providing arms, we need to put them on our sanctions lists. We need to even do that to the President Buhari if we find out that he also supports this. We don't have enough evidence yet that he does. He has so far largely been a bystander. But what we need is a concerted effort. So what I'm asking, in other words, is that we mobilize. I'm asking that we no longer deny that this is genocide, that we no longer become bystanders the way we were in Rwanda and the way we were during the Holocaust. Thank you.
Okay. Got some, you gave some powerful stuff there. So we'll conclude with the final presentation from former Congressman Wolf. Former Congressman Frank Wolf represented the Virginia 10th for over 30 years, from 1981 to 2015. While in Congress, he authored the International Religious Freedom Act. He also helped establish the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom as an independent federal government advisory body. Today, he is with us in his capacity as a former congressman. So, come on up.
Well, thank you very much. One, I want to thank IDC for putting this event on. This is really, really important, so thank you. I want to thank all of you for being here, too, and it's good to be with Lela. I've read all of Leila's books. I urge you to go out and buy them, and the one on Baroness Cox is very, very powerful. And I appreciate the good work that Stephen has done. But thank all of you for being here. Nigeria is the largest country in Africa, the largest, with over 200 million people, and is in the process of unraveling. By 2050, Nigeria will have a larger population than the United States. In a May 31, 2021 article in Foreign Affairs magazine entitled "The Giant of Africa is Failing," former Ambassador John Campbell and Robert Rotberg said the following: "State failure in Nigeria is having a profound consequence for the entire region and beyond. It bodes," he said, "especially ill for the stability and the well-being of weak states in Nigeria's vicinity, as evidenced by the spread of jihad of criminal groups to Burkina Faso," so it's not just Nigeria, it's others, "Cameroon, Chad, Ivory Coast, Mali, and Niger." And don't forget, we lost some American soldiers in Niger. "Boko Haram has killed more people in Nigeria than ISIS killed in Iraq and Syria combined." And I appreciate Greg Stanton of Genocide Watch, highly respected, who was on the panel today. He said that Boko Haram is committing genocide against Christians, and that, quote, "Fulani militants in central Nigeria are also committing crimes against humanity," and he said, quote, "genocidal massacres against Christians." According to the World Food Program, there is rampant, and I've seen it, there's rampant hunger in Nigeria, and millions are displaced, living in squalid living conditions. Press reports tell of kidnapping for a ransom, which we see almost on a daily basis. We see little or no education to children in many regions of the country. We see sexual trafficking with thousands of Nigerian women moving and taken to Europe. We see massive government corruption and a growing lack of confidence, as Stephen was saying, in the Nigerian government. We see human rights violations by the military. Sometimes you're in a little town and the military is coming in. They don't know whether to be glad or to be worried about it because they're very, very concerned with the human rights violations. We see mass migration out of Nigeria. People drowning in the Mediterranean on boats trying to leave to get into Europe. We see Nigerian brain drain happening, and many of those leaving are highly educated professionals. Doctors and nurses are especially anxious to leave. The fact that Nigeria is unsafe is pushing medical professionals to leave at a time when the country has only 74,000 registered doctors for over 200 million people. And in a 2018 Research Center took a poll in Nigeria to find out how many expect to leave. 45% said they expected to leave within the next 5 years. Not only is Boko Haram active in Nigeria, along with Fulani militants, as Greg Stanton said, the Islamic State of West Africa is operating in the Lake Chad region. A Jamestown Foundation, and I urge all of you that are interested, go on and look at the Jamestown website. They do outstanding reports. They said in one report, one thing is for sure, they said, the factional dynamics and jihadism in Nigeria and the Lake Chad region will continue to shift while the violence expands, deepens, and becomes more intractable. That's happening. Go online for those who are interested. Look at the Jamestown. It's a very good, very credible group that's been in existence for over 30 years. In April of 2014, we know Boko Haram garnered worldwide attention for kidnapping 276 Christian schoolgirls. But 8 years later, more than 100 of the girls are still missing. I met with some of the parents, and it's painful. I have 4 daughters, and to think of what's going on there is painful. We saw the word go, #BringBackOurGirls, and then #BringBackOurGirls is sort of gone, and we never hear of it since. Given all these problems, what do I think should be done in Nigeria? One, we need a special envoy. The U.S. should appoint a special envoy for Nigeria or for Nigeria and the Lake Chad region. We have other special envoys. Just go in the State Department list looking at the special envoy. There are special envoy after special envoy. There's one for Tibet, which is good. There's one for other countries, Somalia, which is good. But you look and see, compare Nigeria, what's taking place. Nigeria certainly merits I think higher than most of them that are on there. So this is something that's been done quite often by the State Department. The appointment of a special envoy should be announced publicly by the Secretary of State and preferably also by the President of the United States. This would send a message so that U.S. government agencies, the Congress, and other governments, England and France and others, United Nations, the World Food Program, and others would see that the White House and the State Department were behind this. It would also send a message to the Nigerian government of the commitment of this administration and the State Department to deal with these issues. All these people would know that the special envoy has the support of the President of the United States and the Secretary of State, and they are committed to solving the problems in Nigeria and the Lake Chad region. The special envoy would also work with all of the American ambassadors in the surrounding region, not only with their ambassador in Nigeria. A precedent and a model for this appointment was in 2001 when former Senator John Danforth was appointed special envoy for Sudan. The announcement was made, I was there at the White House, by President Bush and Secretary of State Colin Powell. Members of Congress and officials of the government were invited, and they saw how committed President Bush and Secretary Powell were for this. Danforth was in the middle. President Bush was on one side. Secretary Powell, and God bless Secretary Powell. I've been grateful how committed he was after this was done to make this successful. That sent a message at the outset that Danforth was their person, and Danforth then had the ability, it gave him the ability to get things done. It sent a message that they did it at the White House with the President and Secretary of State, that this was the White House's person, that Senator Danforth had their support. And I want to go one again. I want to give a lot of credit to John Danforth, who did a great job, who lives out in St. Louis, but also Secretary Powell, who stayed with this even to the end when he went to the peace signing agreement. The special envoy for Nigeria and the Lake Chad region should be involved in the creation of a planned Nigeria or a Lake Chad region, and then in the implementation and the coordination of the U.S. response. That's what Danforth did in Sudan, bringing in various agencies. AID, Andrew Nazio, some of you may remember, was an integral part of this, and other government agencies were involved, working with Senator Danforth. International organizations, the UN, to address the problems on the ground. And John Danforth's efforts were successful in large part, again, because of the support he had from the White House and also the support he had from Secretary of State Powell. Everybody knew, everybody in the town then knew that the Bush administration was committed to helping Senator Danforth, and that made what Danforth did very, very successful. This is important. One person to coordinate with the staff, to coordinate and implement a plan. Really, we can talk about how bad it is. We can talk about the number of people being killed. But if I'm lying by the side of the road and you say, it's too bad, Wolf, that you're down there, I want to know what you're going to do to help about it. And a special envoy would make a difference. Other issues. CPC designation. The State Department should also designate Nigeria as a country of particular concern, CPC. Unfortunately, although Secretary Pompeo had designated Nigeria as a CPC, it was taken away by the current administration. As an aside, and I think for all of those who are interested in human rights and religious freedom and persecution, we see that the CPC designation have not been effective in many cases. Perhaps the Library of Congress or another independent group should do a study to determine what impact, if any, there is of a CPC designation. If minimal impact, and it seems that it is a minimal impact, that was in the original language. It was tougher in the original language and changed and weakened, but if it has been minimal, then what legislative changes should be done that all of the groups interested in human rights and religious freedom ought to get behind to make it effective? If it's not working, if CPC designation is being granted and given, and the results of waivers are given and it's not working, it's got to be changed. Something must be done. Next is foreign aid. Foreign aid to Nigeria should be conditional on improvements. If no improvements, it should be cut. The billions that we have given, I could go through other countries, if you just give and give and give and there are no conditions, so it should be cut. Next, the Government Accounting Office should do an audit. Somebody in Congress should ask the Government Accounting Office to do an audit on how American foreign aid has been spent in Nigeria. Some people think there's been much, much waste, and of its successes and of its failures. GAO ought to be asked to do this the same way that it was done during the Afghanistan and many other countries. Not to find out where your aid is going and how successful it is. It's just throwing the American taxpayers' money away. Next, the Congress. The Congress should hold congressional hearings in both the House and the Senate. My goodness, the largest country in Africa, 200 million people. 2050 will have more people than in the United States. The Congress should be holding hearings on this issue. And there should be a robust, and I stress the word, a robust bipartisan caucus for Nigeria made up of Republicans and Democrats. This is not a political issue of Republicans or Democrats. Made up of Republicans and Democrats and House members and Senate members. There was a strong bipartisan caucus for Sudan. It was very active. It met often. And most of the members of the caucus, God bless them, on both sides of the aisle, went to Sudan, visited Southern Sudan. But you need a robust caucus to really deal with that. Next, in closing to the end of diaspora. The Nigerian diaspora in the U.S. should be activated. They should be really interested. Many of their family members are living back there, and they know what's going on. As there are several 100,000, and some say maybe up to 500,000 in the diaspora. Next, there should be a conference. I think there should be a conference held this fall with all the groups interested in Nigeria gathered to work on the solutions of how do you deal with Nigeria and how do you work with a special envoy. Because during the Sudan issue, many private groups came around John Danforth. It wasn't only John Danforth, but it was John Danforth and all the different groups that wanted to be involved in that. And this could also be used as a day where people come into town and they visit their members of Congress. In closing, the Global Terrorism Index has named Nigeria the third most dangerous country in the world. The third most dangerous country in the world after Afghanistan and Iraq. If what is happening in Nigeria were happening in a European country, the world would be enraged and it would be engaged. At this moment, the world nor the United States is enraged, and the world, certainly in the United States, is not engaged. This is a defining moment. It is said, so goes Nigeria, so goes all of Western Africa. Thank you very much.
Okay, so for the next few minutes, I'll be asking just some sort of pre-prepared questions, and then we'll move on to a Q&A with the audience. And I have to say, panelists, thank you very much. That was very informative, alarming, but also somewhat inspiring as well. I guess, yeah, the first question I would have is for you, Congressman Wolf, is you mentioned at the end, if this were happening in a country in Europe, people would be enraged. This has been happening, as Ms. Gilbert pointed out, as far back at least as 2004, probably sooner. What explains the inertia? Why is this not getting the coverage, say, in the media? Why aren't there hearings on Nigeria in Congress?
You know, I don't know. It's painful. I've been in Nigeria. I've been into the villages, and I've talked to Leah Gilbert's mom. I talked to some of the mothers. And what is taking place to the girls. God bless you. You know, as I have 4 daughters, I can't even. I don't know. I think in one respect, I think the church has failed. Quite frankly, in Sudan, we had the church. We had the Catholic Church. We had the Episcopal Church. We had the Anglican Church. We had the Presbyterian Church. We had the church involved. We would meet daily with the different church leaders. And there were people like, God bless him, Chuck Colson, may he rest in peace, who was a mentor of mine. The church was involved. The church is silent. Now, there's always exceptions. Now, you're going to say, Mr. Wolf, this pastor over. I know that. But overall, and there are so many passages in the Bible that just does this that direct us, that advocate that we should be doing this. So I think the one thing that I see different here that was in Sudan, the church in the United States and in England were very, very engaged. I don't really sense that the church in the United States has a burden and is really engaged. I don't know why. I mean, and I want to give credit to Secretary Kerry, and I want to give credit to Rabbi Saperstein. When they designated what was taking place in Iraq and in Syria, where I used to go every other week, a month, and a year, and talk to different people and find out what's going on, and we were finding out, I was saying, who's helping ISIS? Turkey's helping ISIS. This group's helping. They, to Secretary Kerry's credit, and to Rabbi Saperstein's credit, and I give them both, God bless them, the credit, that changed the whole dynamics. Up until that time, people were not focused. Once they designated it genocide, it completely changed. So I think there's two things. The church is quiet, the media, and this is not meant as any criticism of the media. It's dangerous to go to Nigeria. In fact, the embassy doesn't really kind of go out beyond. You many times, let me say, you have not been to Nigeria, and you can differ with me or agree. Don't tell me you've been to Nigeria when you've been to Abuja. If you've just been to Abuja and you've been to a little bit of an event and you talk to some people, don't go back and say, I've been to Nigeria. You haven't been to the United States. Have you been to the Washington, D.C.? Have you been to Lancaster? Have you been to Colorado? Have you been to the Shenandoah? No. So I just think there's not the media is not really covering this issue. That's why I recommend the Jamestown Foundation. They have been on the ground. Stephen's people have been on the ground. But overall, and this is not meant as a criticism, it can be very dangerous. The one time I was there, Agatu, they came into Agatu, the Fulani militants, with helicopters. Where does a terrorist group get helicopters? I still see they came in motorized boats, so it's a dangerous place to go, but the media has not really covered this the way they did for Sudan. So if I had to say, I think the church has been silent. There have not been the giants of God bless them, and there are great people in the church today. But like Chuck Colson and people like that. Secondly, I don't think there's been the media coverage, and lastly, I don't think there's been the congressional involvement. I mean, I always found that to really find out what's going on isn't to read a State Department report. It's to go, be with the people, feel it, touch it, taste it. I guarantee you'd have a special envoy like that. If 5 members of Congress went to Jos and they went to you, take them a couple of places. You get that feeling and you talk to someone. I think that's why we're not there. But it shocks me. Here's the largest country in Africa, over 200, now I think it's 220 million people, will be larger than the United States, and there's no coverage of it.
Good, thank you. Yeah, Leila, I know you had mentioned to me sort of wanting to speak about that media aspect before. Did you want to say anything in addition to Congressman Wolf's? About why Nigeria's not really focused in the media or doesn't have much of a presence there?
Well, you know, I was thinking a lot about this during the Black Lives Matter movement, and it seems like that only works here. And Black lives don't matter very much to people here, I don't think. I think when you see a massacre of little blonde kids in Russia, you're going to see more of a response. And there's no way of bridging that gap unless Black Americans get involved, which I don't see happening. Do you?
No.
And I think it would be helpful to communicate it in a much broader way, because first of all, it's all bad news. It's just one bloodbath after another, and the more we communicate that, the more people turn it off, I think. But honestly, we need people involved that can bridge the gap between a comfortable American population and this horror story and really make it come home to them. And that might be Black Americans.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I wish Dr. Stanton were here because he made a very good argument about why what we see constitutes a genocide. And this is for all three of you, by the way. I guess my question for the panel is, why is it important that we use the correct terminology? Why is it important that we call it a genocide?
I think from research, people mentioning genocide, they say that the ceiling for genocide is the highest, and then just banning the name genocide is being politicized because oftentimes when anytime genocide has happened is when it's declared genocide. Now, genocide is happening, has taken place in Nigeria, and genocidal activities are ongoing again. Now, the question is, what I think why the professional and so many government agencies are running away from designating or calling Nigeria issues as genocide is because they don't want to take responsibility. Because once genocide is declared, the international community must take action. So I think they are running away from taking action. That is the reason. Because when they say, oh, you can call it mass atrocity, what is the difference? It's targeted. And so it's just running away by thinking, don't call it genocide. Okay, it's mass atrocity. So they don't want to take responsibility because they know declaring that genocide has taken place, there must be action. Deployment of international instruments to combat or stop that, or punish the perpetrators.
Yeah.
Well, I agree. That's why I want to say again, I give a lot of credit to Secretary Curry and to Rabbi Saperstein, who was the ambassador over there. When they changed it and called what was taking place in northern Iraq and in Syria genocide, it changed everything. It changed everything. Had they not done this, many more people would have died. If you go back and read one of the best books I've ever read, is Samantha Power's book, Problem from, what's the exact title? Problem from, it's a great book. I've read it with research to go back. She talked about cables were coming in to the State Department about Rwanda, yeah. And Kofi Annan was seeing state cables coming in, and they were not doing anything for that very reason. And if you recall, and I want to give him credit, Bill Clinton, to his credit, felt so guilty about what took place in Rwanda. I went to Rwanda. I heard the stories of bodies coming down the river, and Mr. Wolf, if you could have seen what was taking place, and they came into my church. Bill Clinton felt so bad that he flew to Rwanda and apologized to the Rwandan people. Now, I'm not going to make any predictions. I think if you read Jamestown and some of the other things, this is getting worse. Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Boko Haram, look at who's moving in. They're making this region so I think they're reluctant to say, because once you use the word genocide, that's a powerful word. It should never be thrown around. It should never say that something is genocide when it's not genocide. Greg Stanton and other experts can document this is genocide. It is genocide. We need to do something about it. We need a special envoy to kind of pull together all of our resources, World Food Program, England, France, also the Department of Defense on what we should be doing on training the military. I mean, remember the military down in Colombia, we're doing certain things, and we retrained the military down in Colombia, Plan Colombia, if you I mean, to one person who has that authority, and by standing next to President, whether it be whoever the President is and the Secretary of State, but if this person stands next to President Biden and Secretary Blinken, and they say to the bureaucracy, this is my person, and I have confidence in them, and they will do the job, then I think the whole word of genocide is they will then speak out and do something. And once America does something, others will follow. Once we got involved with regard to what was taking in northern Iraq and Mosul and places like that, others got involved. If we don't get involved, frankly, many of the other countries will say it's bad, but they will not get involved.
Let me just follow that up real quick. This goes to what, your presentation as well, Stephen. So the United States has been acting, or at the very least, has given substantial aid to the Nigerian government. The Nigerian government launched a massive counterinsurgency against Boko Haram. So massive, in fact, that many people criticize them for being a little too heavy-handed. So,
when was that? When was that? Which report has that?
That was an International Crisis Group report, I believe 2019.
I disagree with that because it is actually refugee camps that were targeted by the military helicopters. So many civilians were killed, not necessarily the terrorists. So for me, that is what do I call it? They really misdirect international community from knowing exactly, if they had done that, why Boko Haram is still flourishing, why Fulani militants still flourishing. The truth of the matter is that the money, the aid, economic, military aid that the United States has given to Nigeria is something like Congressman has said that at least the oversight of the Congress of the United States must ask that question, where is that money going? If we don't follow that money, the money eventually is ending up in the hand of even most of these terrorist sympathizers. So, and you know, they capture many, Boko Haram capture many of even U.S. weapons that was supplied to Nigeria government.
Is that right?
Yes. So, if anybody is saying heavy-handedness by Nigeria military, yes, on the civilians, not on the terrorists.
Okay.
And he's right. You go in a village and they'll tell you something. We see the military coming in. We don't know whether to be glad or to be worried about it. And secondly, not to do an investigation. GAO could do a great job not to do an accountability of all of the aid that has been given in the last 10 years and see where it's going. Has it been successful? It's crazy. That's like you've been giving something to some group and you don't know if they're successful or not. So you really need an accountability, and the GAO is person to do it. That's why you should have a congressional hearing, bring GAO up, let them designate, they do great work. But if you don't know where the money's coming, how do you know where it's going? Who's getting it? Has it been successful? My sense is you will find that many people are ripping this thing off.
Good. Okay, at this point we will go ahead and open the floor to questions from the audience. We do have a microphone, so just Billy, want to get up here? Pass that to whoever has their hand up. I think this gentleman was first.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to address this question initially to Stephen. I'd like to know about the Nigerian legislature. You know, here in the United States, the House of Representatives has the power of impeachment, and they even impeach some people, some presidents that are out of power. But has anybody in the Nigerian legislature sought to impeach Buhari, or is there any sort of heroic things you could say about anybody in the Nigerian legislature? Because we hear absolutely nothing about that here.
Yes, thank you so much for that question. Before the Nigeria Senate went on recess a few weeks ago, there was this, because of many politicians, for the first time, they were affected because terrorists took over Abuja. And that is where they stay. So one, somebody now say we can no longer survive like this. So he moved for impeachment of President Buhari. Then the Senate president shut down the whole legislation and say, hey, let us proceed on invocation. What that tells you is that this, when you talk about Nigerian legislature and the executive, they are together, so there is no check and balances. So what president or any administration says is what the Congress will endorse. There is no robust debate about issues of security or anything. So it is just where they share money, and that is a fact. Corruption, the highest level of corruption in Nigeria is the legislature, and that is very embarrassing, and we must call a spade a spade. You can't really get any in Nigeria, because there was one time when President Obasanjo was being hounded to be impeached. They just went with bags of money and shared to them, and that was gone. So corruption in Nigeria legislature would never allow them to even think of impeaching the president. It was when their lives were threatened a few weeks ago. Somebody just moved the motion. We have to serve the president and everything to start to trigger impeachment clause. All of them ran away, and as I'm talking, they've not reconvened. Why Nigeria is burning?
Other questions?
So thank you all for your talks, very informative. So I have a question about how to engage the Muslim community on this issue. So as is evident from Muslim band mothers, clearly the Christian community is engaged. Certainly churches can speak out more on behalf of the persecuted Christians. But I wonder, how do we engage the Muslim community? As we know, like after 9/11, after all the terrorist attacks inflicted by Al-Qaeda and others and Islamist groups, Muslims in the U.S., particularly in the U.S., spoke out and said, you know, Islam is a religion of peace. These actors do not define Islam, and so on and so on. But how do we engage Muslim communities on the issue of Islamist inflicted persecution of Christians in Nigeria? Do you have any thoughts or strategy?
I don't know.
Well, we have actually engaged a Muslim community, and it started from International Religious Roundtable, where we, from time to time, try to set up that mechanism from the ministerial of 2018. It started, and then ICOM organization, having engaged extensively with some Muslim community here in the United States, because some of them are embarrassed and said, look, Islam cannot be seen or judged to be a religion that is supporting terrorism. So we were glad. So what we did, especially in Nigeria, we took a roundtable, the model here. We are the first that took it out of the United States to Nigeria, where we have Sunni Muslim, Shia Muslim, and people of faith and of no faith coming together to discuss. So what that has done is to actually hold these Muslim leaders and Christian leaders accountable, and to be friends, and to discuss social initiatives that bring community together. And he also, that in 2018 December, Congressman Frank Wolf was with us in USA when we brought some Shia Muslim for a private meeting, and that was to promote this multi-level faith discussion, dialogue. So for me, I think we must not shy away, because one, I don't want to isolate them, and then name calling will not help, but we want to actually make all these religious leaders take responsibility, so that they will actually form an alliance that they will be able to talk to their people, because we still have some radical preachers who enable this terrorism to flourish. So for me, I think it's a good way to go, because whether we like it or not, we have to defeat this terrorism together. And so that means we have to form alliance, and it can't be discriminatory. It has to be all-encompassing and bringing people, whether at least we are even, we are dealing with Jewish community as well, because they've experienced a kind of massacre, genocide. And we have Jacobs, who actually is based in Boston. He is actually mobilizing Jewish community also to be able to speak to this issue. So we need almost everyone. But somebody is talking, let me mention briefly, African American community, sorry to say this, is problematic. I know a lot of people, if some of you will mention that, they will say that is racism. But the fact remains that there is nothing like racism here. There is the concept of most of them not overcoming the fact that most of us who, I was born in Nigeria, I came to the United States a few years ago with my family. But imagine I'm able to discuss with non-African American better on issues. As I'm talking to you, I'm talking on behalf of Taiji Men case in Taiwan as a black person. So now I see that most time I've gone to many black churches. I live in Atlanta, and also travel to Houston to engage black community. I think Muslims community respond better than black community. So it's really huge, because they have this victimhood mentality, most of them, not all. So if anybody monopolizes victimhood, then the person is really captured, will not be able to break loose from that past. And that is what many of them, as I'm telling you, have been resented and say, hey, you don't even know anything, that your fathers, your forefathers sold us to slavery, imagine. So that is discriminatory, and I need to tell us openly that it's really been difficult. It's been difficult to deal with them, and they are actually having had experience of discrimination, racism at all this time around. We just, oh, our brothers and sisters in Africa must be protected, or we should speak, but few of them. I give it to Benjamin Watson. He's really championing and doing a lot about this. So I'm not saying all of them.
I mean, just all of the people in Nigeria would be helped by a special envoy, because the special envoy would be not only dealing with terrorism, but also hunger. If you go in some of the villages and some of the camps, none of us here would want to live like that. If you look at the number of doctors that are leaving, they're down to 74,000 for over 220 million people. That impacts on everybody, of every faith, of every denomination. The World Food Program to be active in certain places. The number of women who are being taken into Europe and sexually trafficked, that's everybody. So a special envoy would help everybody. This doesn't separate anybody out from anybody else. Not to do something positive, like none of the recommendations that I put out are negative. I don't attack anybody. I don't criticize anybody. In my time in Congress, my very best friend, very best, he knows because he used to work for me. My very best friend was a Democratic member, Congressman Tony Hall. He actually used to contribute to my campaign. We worked together. We found issues of commonality. Many times we would be together and there would be a vote, and one would vote green, one would vote red, different, but we came together. We want to bring together, so this would help Christians, Muslim, everyone in Nigeria, and don't forget, in the surrounding countries. In Burkina Faso and Cameroon would help them. Not to do this, I think, will literally doom Nigeria to a situation in the future, and I don't want to be predictive, but will somebody have to fly to and apologize for not doing something? So everything that I've tried to put forward has all been positive that would help everybody in Nigeria, not just one segment.
Okay. A few more questions.
Good afternoon. I have a quick two-part question. One, we know the Nigerian military has been trained and paid for by the U.S. DOD to work in regional peacekeeping missions, which they've proven adept at working, but they are slacking in their own internal security. So how should the U.S. repair that? And the second question, going to what the Congressman's comments were, right here is K Street, and we know that Nigerians all love their firms. I can actually name one governor, Governor Rufai of Kaduna State. He has his own personal lobbyist here in Washington. So the question is, how can we counteract their influence on K Street?
Well, frankly, all of the groups who were interested in these issues ought to be focusing, on some of the lobbyists downtown that are representing, and I'm not going to get into that because this will take the story a different place. But the special envoy, again, would also work with the Department of Defense. Danforth had DOD people involved. He had the various agencies involved. It wasn't just one little narrow. So that was what Plan Columbia that the Senate put together. Senator Leahy, also with regard to military and human rights. So I think that would be part of it. It wasn't just a narrow terrorism. It's hunger, it's famine, it's education, it's healthcare. It's all these things together, but including working with the American military. And I think the Nigerian military, would welcome the active involvement. I don't mean troops here. This is Leila said. We're not saying troops in Nigeria, but we welcome the active involvement of the American military to help train, similar to what we've done in other countries.
Yeah, Congressman, sir, to add to that, he mentioned El-Rufai, who we think has committed crime against humanity from his utterances and his actions over the years. And I think there are also global instruments to activate when it comes to, for me, I see El-Rufai as a state actor. And what I think we have evidence We have many things that link El-Rufai to sponsoring terrorism in Nigeria. We have it, but now we are thinking, what about Global Magnitsky Act? That is one instrument to be used against some state actors that we know have committed crime against our people. So for me, I think it's really, they are lobbying so much that sometimes when we try as much as possible to make sure we prevent him from traveling to the United States, and I think since then he has not been able to travel, so visa ban, and then many other instruments that can, because for me, the failure of not punishing these people who obviously have supported terrorism flourishing in Nigeria shows to everybody anywhere in Nigeria that terrorism, you can perpetrate terrorist activities and you go unpunished, especially in the international community is quiet or they lack the will to act. So imagine you pick El-Rufai is being treated. I'm telling you, other state actors will like what is happening. And then also we shouldn't forget, sir, everyone here, the truth of the matter is also where it is really, I'm really worried about what the global community is thinking, and there are implications. One, Turkey, Qatar, and even Saudi Arabia, we begin to look at them. Where are these weapons coming from? Right. Who is sponsoring who? And then we have transborder human trafficking flourishing as a result of terrorism. Girls every day are abducted and they are sold as sex slaves. Who are behind this? And it is something like he said about Special Envoy to this Nigeria and the Lake Chad region. All of these things will unravel a lot of mystery behind this. If not, we will keep on talking forever. So now, imagine those sponsoring these guys, you are able to like apprehend few of them. Because it has become a trade. It is robust. Imagine terrorists collecting tax, terrorists also making money from arms smuggling. Imagine arms trade going on, robust arms trade, and Mediterranean human trafficking flourishing. Over how many? I think there is a report I read. I don't want to misrepresent that, but over $25 billion from human trafficking globally, and the Mediterranean contribute more than 15% to this. So this is really, and then imagine Nigeria implodes. American interest will be impacted in the whole of Africa. We are talking about over 200 million people. So if Nigeria implodes, the whole of Africa will go, and I'm telling you, Nigeria, the distance from Nigeria to the United States is just 10 hours or 11 hours thereabout. Imagine terrorists is in charge. They will launch attack. The ultimate goal of any terrorist organization in the entire world is the United States. They want to get at the United States. Imagine, is it not good to prevent it from happening, or you want to spend times 10 to try to defeat it when it happens?
Okay. We have just one more question and then we'll wrap up.
Thank you very much. Rahim Rashidi or Mr. Kurd with Kurdistan TV. As we know, Representative, you visited Kurdistan. How would you like to describe religion minority situation over there? And second question is, how is it important to educate and especially youth people about those terrorist groups? Nothing differences between Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Boko Haram, militia groups in Iraq, in Syria, and other places. Thank you.
Well, I think you'd ask Stephen. Well, I would just end with this. I don't want to get into this is Nigeria, so I want to keep it in Nigeria. But on my first trip to Iraq after I left Congress, the Kurdistan people took us, your military took me up to the front lines, and we looked out and there were ISIS. I came back and I said, at all the meetings after that, I would say, who's helping ISIS? Names came up: Turkey, Qatar, Saudi Arabia. Meeting after meeting after meeting. I mean, they would fly to Istanbul, buy some Turkish candy or whatever, and call a telephone number, and get picked up and come down in. And so I think you had the support of some of these countries aiding the ISIS and what they would do. There's still 2,700. And the world should be embarrassed, but there's still 2,700 Yazidi women and girls who have not been reunited with their families. I mean, you guys could help them a little bit more, some housing up in Sinjar, in Sinjar City. I mean, so there was support coming in from outside, which was really aiding and abetting what ISIS was doing there. And I just end with the very fact, and I think it's important to be positive. I want to again acknowledge Rabbi Saperstein and Secretary of State Kerry for designating, and your people were very helpful, the number of Kurds who died fighting ISIS is a very, very high number. I've been very grateful for the Kurdish people giving their life for that. But had Secretary Kerry and Rabbi Saperstein not designated them as genocide, this thing would have gone on for a long time. So that made all the difference. But I couldn't believe it when I would say, I would hear the terrible stories, and then I would say, who is helping ISIS? Turkey, Qatar, Saudi Arabia. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, as well.
I think that wraps it up for today. Thank you all very much for coming, and thank you, panelists, for a very informative session.
Thank you.